What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I have an excellent review for you today. This is the ZOHD Dart 250G. 250G means it's under 250 grams, and what's really awesome about this is that not only is it under 250 grams with the stock gear that comes on it, the motor, the ESCs, and the airframe itself, and the components that go on there, it's under 250 grams with the FPV gear, the GPS, and the ZOHD Kopilot light system on board. So on all the wiring on here, this is all under 250 grams, even with the 4S 450 milliamp battery that I prefer to fly, which gets us a little above 5 minutes flight time, which is kind of crazy on a 4S 450. That is just really cool. So traditionally, the smaller, under 20-inch type wingspan type of planes, FPV planes, are a little bit of a bumpy ride. And the more you tune this flight controller with the included POTS settings, you will actually be able to smooth it out quite a bit, and it'll be a little bit less bumpy for you. So 3 modes on that flight controller. You have return to home on here. You can put that on any airplane for $45, which is kind of amazing. Plugs in the servos and everything, and you set it up with your radio. You do not do any mixing in the radio, but you're pretty much ready to go after about 20 minutes worth of work on this flight controller. And I have to do a review on that flight controller specifically and show you guys really how it sets up from scratch. You don't have to do any mixing in your radio, which is phenomenal. But all the modes work: return to home, stability mode, and manual mode. And just a tip for you guys: don't launch this flight controller in stability mode like you can iNav. This flight controller will kind of nose in with stability mode on, so kind of an odd thing, and that might be my settings. I might need more throw in my travel limiting. So let's go ahead outside now, and let me show you a demo of this Dart 250G. It's freaking awesome. I love this plane. Here we go. All right, guys, let's go ahead and do the line of sight flight test. I'm just going to show you how everything plugs in. I'm going to launch it in manual mode because when I launch this flight controller in stability mode, it wants to crash. So we're just going to go ahead and plug in the battery right here, load up the home point. You want to make sure you get your CG right. Make sure your throttle stick's all the way down. Yeah, we're all good there. And when the radio is really close to the aircraft, my RXSR will kind of fail safe itself. So make sure you're in manual mode. When you hear it beep 3 times, the home point will be loaded. Just gonna go ahead and put the top on. Right now I have the camera unplugged, so we're just gonna wait a minute or so. I usually wait about a minute before I launch it. Just gonna check my control surfaces, see if we have that yet. Nope, it's not ready for that yet. Okay, now I'm in manual mode. If the switch is all the way up in the front position, that's gonna be RTL, and that's what I started out in. You don't wanna start out in that, so switch to manual, and then you'll see those surfaces stop moving. What's most important about this launch and return to home test at the field is that your stability mode is correct. So if we're looking at it from the back, if I tilt it to the right, this side should come up to push that wing back down. If I go this way, this side should come up to push that wing back to level. If you go nose down, your elevator should come up. Nose up should give you elevator down. And the sensitivity of this is adjustable in the settings with that little settings board that you get in the Kopilot box. So be pretty careful setting it up, and everything will go as planned. If your stability mode is not functioning properly, when you go into RTL, it's gonna crash. So again, I'm gonna launch this in manual mode, and I have 25% expo on my manual setup in the radio. So also don't reverse anything or change anything in the settings inside your radio, because it won't translate to the flight controller for return to home. Super duper important. Here we go. There we go. Now we're gonna go into stability mode, because even with 25% expo, it's pretty squirrely, and this plane will get away from you line of sight really fast. So
I'm just going to kind of take it easy, and we're going to make some passes here. And again, I'm in stability mode, and you're going to have to play around with the pots for the elevator and aileron, okay guys, because if you don't, it's going to twitch a lot if you have it too high, and if you have it too low, it's not going to be quite enough throw, so it's not going to respond very well. So it's flying pretty good in stability mode, and if you want to do barrel rolls and things like that, you can put it into manual mode and you can really do some hot dogging. But you're going to get well over 5 minutes flight time with even like a 450. You can fly it on 3 or 4S, and right now it's looking good. Let's just cut off the throttle here and show you how it glides. It nose down a little bit. I'll put a little more power back into it and come back around, and we're going to take it out in the field here, and we're going to point it the other direction. I'm going to flip into RTL in line of sight mode for you. So I'm going to bring it out to the edge of the field out here. We have it pointed the other direction, and here we go. Let's go ahead and flip into RTL. Now we're hands off, line of sight, and now it's just doing its thing out there. You guys probably can't even see it at this point, but it's coming back around. It's making a huge bank to my right. Now the nose is facing toward us, and what it should do is come back, return to loiter. And return to loiter is going to do a big circle around the home point. So right now, still hands off, way up there, about around 125 feet up, coming back around. The sun is blinding me. Making a perfect circle around the home point. So you can switch out of that at any time. And Kopilot's awesome. It will work on any airplane, V-tail, T-tail, or Elevon setup for your FPV wing. So I'm going to go ahead, switch back into stability mode, and I'm going to make a left bank. And she's way up there. So now I'm going to drop the throttle a little bit, come down. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Super fast little plane. So now that I have shown you guys line of sight, let's just go ahead and bring it in for a nice long and low landing. And I'll show you how this plane FPVs. It's really pretty cool, as long as I don't stuff it. Here we go. Nice landing. So it's so light that anytime you're landing, it really doesn't hurt it. Even if you crashed it. I stuffed it earlier and the nose was completely fine. So really cool. Here we go, guys. Let's do it.
Okay, let's go ahead and do the Fpv flight test. And what's really cool about this plane is with Kopilot on here, I don't have to worry about fail-safing. I can fly out as far as I want. My receiver and my video can take me. And if I do fail-safe, return to home is going to automatically kick in, and this plane is going to come back to me. So as long as you have a decent height and you're not behind trees when that happens, you should be okay. One other thing I'm going to recommend, guys, like use an LC filter between your camera or your VTX power source, however you're going to power it, because it does not do filtering on there for you. And my VTX definitely does not have an onboard filter. So that's a little bit of noise that you're seeing, but the Falcor 2 is actually really, really good. When I ease off the throttle a bit, see how it goes to nice and clear. And I have my camera wired straight to my battery lead, so I'm getting voltage telemetry on screen from that Falcor 2, which is nice. You can get on-screen display if you use Kopilot's VC400 camera, which I'm not a big fan of. I want to use my own cameras on these. And the microcam is quite light. Also gives me a timer, which is cool. So right now I'm flying in manual mode, and now I switched into stability, and everything's smoothed out a little more. And the more you fly Kopilot, the better you get at adjusting the pots in that little settings controller that comes in the box. And the smoother you get the gyro gain, the smoother the aircraft's going to fly in your stability mode. It's going to be less twitchy because the gyro is not going to be overacting. You don't need it to overreact to the plane's movements. So that takes a little bit of time to get that set up, but once you do, I mean, look at this. You can really get this plane in there, and that's the funnest thing about this plane for me, is that it's my most portable fixed wing aircraft with GPS return to home on there. And it's so simple because honestly, to put iNav on something this small, it's a little bit it's a little bit overkill. Some people enjoy doing that. If you don't mind doing all the wiring for a Maytech WSE, you can do that with a 20x20 stack and have all the bells and whistles you want with iNav. But for guys who are not familiar with iNav, this is foolproof, and it's cool because you can put the Kopilot in any plane. You can see off in the distance right there, and that mountain is actually Mount St. Helens, and off in this direction over here is Mount Hood. But the way I have it set up, the gain is just about right, and you'll see with the return to home, it's not shaking violently on the return to home like the other wing that I reviewed on the channel, the Black Ops version a while back. That was the Black Ops Talon. But it's so cool they released a micro dart. This little nano sized dart is super cool. I'm hoping and praying that they release other versions of the 250G series, and I'm sure they're working on it. I really want a 250G orbit. Shout out to my man Jeff out there who mentioned that and got me lusting after one of those now. But I'm sure they'll do it. I think the 250G, the first one that they released here, is selling like crazy. Everybody's talking about it. But this is cool. You can get up there and just cruise just like this, as far out as your receiver and your video can take you. Usually your video is going to go out before your receiver does. I'm running diversity receiver today, and I'm able to get, I bet I could take this out a mile. What's really cool is I'm flying a 4S 450 milliamp, and I'm already up to about 5 minutes on my flight time. And the cool thing is that I let it cruise at about 30-35% throttle. You can't see my throttle on the screen, but that's what this plane will cruise at. And one thing you have to remember, this is a review, so I'll tell you some characteristics of a smaller FPV wing. It doesn't have a lot of control. It doesn't have a lot of wing surface, so that means you're going to have a more of a stall characteristic. There's a fine line between like 20 and 30% throttle and 0 throttle. There's a really fine line between that to where the wing will start to drop. Now it will glide if you kill the motor, but depending on your airspeed, that's where you're going to get a stall into the ground. But so watch that when you're putting it in there, because I get pretty ballsy with this plane here coming up, and I'm going to show you that. I'm just going to put this plane in there. We call putting it in there is getting close in toward the ground, obstacles, things like that. Closer to the ground you get with these long range planes, sometimes the more points you get with the long range community. If you're out there 5 miles and you put it in between some trees, you get 10 points. Just kidding. So we're going to slow it way down, and this almost reminds me of the speed of the Orbit. Remember how slow I had this going over these canals out here with the Orbit? Look at that. I'm going so slow I can just see everything right here. You can see that pole. Hopefully there's no ghost branches through here, and I'm gonna attempt to go down this road. This is the far road on the far side of this tree farm right here, and it is super tight in there. Normally I can fly quads through here no problem because they track really well, but getting the speed right and everything right is really critical here, because I'm gonna have a long walk. Not worried about damaging the plane because it's so light, but right there, lost a little video, getting a little bit low, watching out for ghost branches, dipping below this tree, just barely making it through here. But this is the kind of places you can put this wing in. This is really cool. It's a little bit of bounce back and forth there when I was coming back up. And there's really not a lot of wind today. This is the kind of plane you want to fly with kind of a light wind type of day. You can fly it, and I mean, I've flown little wings like this and up to 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, which is kind of crazy, but there's a lot of bump. You need a bigger plane for more wind. A little bit more weight will smooth everything out. Now I'm going to take this canal, we're going to put it in there, try to get low through here, super sketch over top of those bushes. I want to keep a little bit of height over this canal, so I don't want to put this plane down in there. Plus I'm dangerously slow right here, so I need to speed up and get out of there. But I love the way the plane flies. This is a lot of fun for me because I can explore close in terrain, or I can take it up high and fly it like a traditional long-range plane. And right now I have a low battery, so it's telling me to get back. And I'm at 8 minutes on a 450, guys. That's crazy. 8 minutes on a 450. And taking consideration, I did let it sit there and load up the home point for about a minute. So we're more likely at 7 minutes on a 450. So if you decided to use something like a 550, you could get well over 7 minutes. All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test. That was a lot of fun. Now, setting up the Kopilot is one of those things where you really have to read the manual, and they do include this printout inside the box. You get GPS in this box, you get all the wiring, which is pretty cool. You even do get a little servo type plug, so if you needed to make a receiver plug, if you didn't already have an S-bus type of receiver plug like I have here, just going to my XSR, it can plug in right there with signal forward. So there is an arrow on here as well on the flight controller right there. So primarily on Kopilot, you have a standard 4-channel setup. We have aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder. And you even have an aux channel there. And the GPS just plugs right into the board, which is super awesome. You also have the option for PPM, which who's going to use that? Nobody really, but they have that option there. And that is what this cable is for. But if you needed to poach this cable for an S-bus type of plug, you can do that too. You could snip this off, solder it to your receiver. Right here we have the settings port, and this settings port actually goes to this longer cable here. This is the longest cable in the box, in the Kopilot box. This plugs in here, and you have 3 settings on this plane. On the flight controller itself, you have the RTH, RAD pot, elevator, and aileron, and you have a set button. And the set button is what you select for which type of aircraft you're flying. Are you flying elevons? Are you flying V-tail or T-tail? And this is cool because this out of the box comes set and defaulted to elevon FPV wing type setup, which is the Dart 250G, which is awesome. So I don't even have to press the set button here. One thing that you might have to do is that when I turned everything on and I had everything I thought was working right from the radio, one of the channels was reversed, and I believe it was my ailerons. So what you need to do is, inside the box with your Kopilot system, you do get a little screwdriver. It's a flathead screwdriver, and you're just going to take this pot right here, and to reverse the direction of your servo, you're just going to turn, say, aileron back to the left. If usually it comes stock, both of these will be cranked all the way to the right, and that is giving you an extreme amount of throw on the stability mode, which will cause jitter on the way home. When it goes into sort of about 50% throttle and return to home, that high gain will cause the wing to shake. Like my previous review of the Black Ops. If you watched that review, you saw a lot of shake, and I was told from ZOHD that if I just turn that back a little bit, dial it back a little bit on these 2 pots, it'll actually lessen the amount of travel. So it's not going to be quite as, and it'll lessen the amount of gain, so it's not as twitchy. So to get my ailerons reversed, I had to just crank this all the way back left, and then I had it going the right direction. And then I had to bring it back to the right a little bit to give it just a little more throw. Because you want about, I would say about 10 millimeters to 15 millimeters throw on both of your surfaces, up and down. So traditionally, with this type of setup, we want to have, when you press left aileron, this should come up. When you press right aileron, this should come up. When you do elevator, both should go down, and that's pushing the stick forward, and pulling back, both of these surfaces should go up. Now, when you're setting up stability mode, this is super important. You have to make sure that your stability mode, when your switch is on stability mode, that everything is right here. So if this wingtip goes up, then this surface needs to come up. and that air traveling over that will push this wingtip back to level. Same thing on this side. If this side dips down, this wingtip, this surface right here needs to come up. So leveling out the aircraft. Same thing when the nose is down, you need to have both of these come up. If they don't both come up, they're probably reversed. So you need to fix that, not in your radio. Don't mix it in your radio, because what happens is return to home relies on your stability mode, and it will immediately go and crash. So very important that you set up Kopilot correctly before you go out and field test your return to home. And that's the other thing, guys. You want to field test your return to home. A lot of times I do it line of sight. You can also do it FPV. FPV might be better for most people out there, so you don't have a flyaway crash, but you could always flip back into your stability mode or your manual mode. The other thing, as far as manual mode goes, I had to, originally I flew it with 0 expo, and this plane is so small and so fast that you really honestly want to put like 25 to 30% expo on both the ailerons and the elevator on this plane. But what's cool is that it is a quick release hatch. We have a 30 amp ESC in here. We have venting all the way through, starting here and through here. GPS unit can just come up right here for your Kopilot. And in the back right here, this is actually a really solid mount. I'm impressed with this. This is a 1406 motor, 2600 kV. It's a little higher kV than I'd like to see, but yeah, you could always replace this motor with something a little lower kV, would actually give you a longer flight time. But it is a Sunny Sky branded motor, and those are good motors. Open bottom motor design there. Wires go through, and don't put this on until you have properly defined your motor direction, so it's pushing. And this prop is going to go on just like this, with the leading edge facing forward of the aircraft, and that will give you a push. But I'm not sure why they chose to put tri-prop on the back. Traditionally on these planes I would like to have a bi-blade prop, but it also seems that I got a 5-inch prop, bi-blade prop in the box as well, so I might experiment with that. But it breaks down pretty easily as well. If you want to just put VHB along these seams, I can break this down to take it on a plane or travel with it. Just pull this out right here. It does come with some 3M sticky tape, and this is being a little harder to pop off, but there you go. They pop off, and there's a carbon spar all the way through the wing, and pre-installed carbon spars on the elevons, which is also awesome. And these do come with 3M sticky tape. You pull the sticky tape off this back part and the front part, and these stick down. You'll have to kind of carefully do that to put these on your vertical stabilizers. And there is no rudder on this aircraft. And this I should have taped down, but this is just for testing. Normally you want your antenna to come to an L shape, both to be parallel, or both to be 90 degrees to each other to get the best signal. And I can just plug that right back in. And there is a diagram in the instructions that tell you where to plug in each servo. So from the back of the plane, it shows you where to plug in your servos to Kopilot, and this is cool. So right here we have 3 different planes they have the schematic for, and the first one is flying wing, and that's what this wing is. Aileron, elevator. So this is your aileron channel right here on this side, and this is your elevator channel. So this servo will plug into aileron, and I believe those are 8-gram servos on here, and this one will plug into elevator. And obviously your ESC is going to plug into throttle. So that's how that goes. If you had a V-tail, this would be the diagram for that, for the Black Ops plane, and then the T-tail would be like this one. And your LED configuration is right here for determining which type of plane you're flying. So they have V-tail, T-tail, and Delta flying wing right there. And it comes default. You will see that the flight controller has actually some LEDs on here. 2 green LEDs will let you know that it is in Delta wing mode. So if we look at this right here, you can see the first 2 LEDs are green, and that tells me that it's in Delta mode. And this red one right here, that's your GPS signal. So that's telling me that I don't have a lock. When that goes green, you're good to go. And you'll actually hear a beep. When this wing is all ready to go and the GPS is loaded up, you'll hear that beep. And you should get a green light there, but right now I have a red light because we're in the studio. So as you guys probably saw in my flight test, my video had lines on it whenever I would throttle up, and that's because I didn't use an LC filter, and I actually ran my Foxeer Falcor version 2 micro right here. This is an awesome camera. It did really well. I ran it straight to the power, and the reason for that is I wanted to have battery telemetry on this camera right up on the heads-up display, because Kopilot's not displaying any OSD for me with this particular camera. If you want OSD from Kopilot, you need to use the VC400 camera. That's the one from ZOHD. I think it's like $35, but it's nowhere near as good as a camera like this. And this is probably maybe even a little bit lighter, but I also used the AKK Nano. This is a 2020 VTX with a UFL connector running out here, and I have this just zip tied up here. And this is the True RC Nano antenna. These are great. This is a full range antenna, which is really, really powerful little antenna and very, very lightweight. So that type of FPV combo will get you under that 250 gram mark. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get a weigh in on this. We have it precariously just leaning up against a box right there, and with the battery it is 220.1 grams. That's with a 4S450 battery. So let me just move this box out of the way, and I will hold it by hand. Just let it barely lean on my finger like this, and we're still getting right around 220 grams. So with the Kopilot flight controller, GPS, all of my camera gear on here, it is 220 grams in the average weight with a 4S450 battery. So well under 250 Gs. And for some of you guys that might say, hey, the antenna's not there, I tucked it on the inside so it wouldn't get in the way. There it is. So I think overall, like, they have something so cool here. I would love to see a 250G version of all of their planes. I mean, I'm dying for a 250G Orbit over here. The Orbit from ZOHD was one of my favorite planes of all time for kind of just a portable sort of medium range type of FPV plane with GPS and all the bells and whistles on there. And this one can also support iNav. If you choose to put the 20x20 Maytech in there, you can make this under 250G with the Maytech. I believe it's called the F411WSE was the flight controller that you want for that. And that will give you all the bells and whistles with iNav. And that's for the iNav crowd. The ZOHD Kopilot is for the guys who don't want to use their computer. And I've been showing off Kopilot at my local field recently, and a friend of mine, Tom, is just getting into FPV, and I got to give a shout out to Tom because he's an awesome dude to fly with. He has all kinds of Bixer type planes, and this ZOHD Kopilot is perfect for that. You can install it, plug in your servos, the GPS plugs right in, there's no soldering. You plug in your ESC to it, and a little bit of setup. I think if I sat down with him and helped him out with the pots at first, once you got all of that stability right, your return to home is going to work perfect on the plane. And the plane's going to come back, and it flies and it loiters in a circle above the home point. So you could put this on any plane with a V-tail, T-tail, or the Elevant setup. So it's so far working flawless, even with the different flight modes. Just beware if you're flying manual mode. When you flip into manual, be ready for it. It's kind of like when you're flying stability on a quad and you flip into acro, and your quad can kind of take a nosedive because the controls become a lot more unless you put expo into it. So put about 25 to 30% expo in your manual mode settings on your radio. It will not affect the flight controller. But again, before we end this video, make sure that you set all of your stability mode services to be correct, moving the right direction before you test out your return to home. Otherwise, you're going to crash. But again, this has been an awesome review, and I'm really happy that ZOHD came out with the Dart 250G. I just hope they keep pushing these 250G aircraft because this thing is just too cool. I love it. So many friends of mine have already ordered this and have theirs on the way. So hopefully you want to grab one too. I think it's just one of the coolest releases of the year. And here we are at the end of the year and they're releasing all this cool stuff. It's so awesome. But thanks again, guys, for watching my channel. I'm Justin Davis. Take care. I'll see you on the next one.